Welcome to the earthvox podcast. The earthvox podcast. earthvox podcast.
I never remember if I need to turn the intro music up or down, because when I go to listen back, quality control, I think, oh boy, that needs to be a lot louder or a lot quieter. I can never remember which. Everything is sounding pretty good. That's exciting. Now I need to shut it off so I can't hear myself talking in my ear a few seconds behind. They think they found the January 6th pipe bomber. I'm skeptical. Many conservatives in the space are also skeptical. The news story was basically, oh, give me a break. Freaking pop-ups. The news story was basically, hey, these people at The Blaze, the organization that broke this story, claim that they found the J6 pipe bomber based on some kind of, it's sensational. The media coverage was very sensational as well. They used, what do they call it? Well, let's I guess we can read a little bit from The Blaze. A forensic analysis of a female former U.S. Capitol police officer's gait, the way that she walks, is a 94% to 98% match to the unique stride of the long-sought January 6th pipe bomb suspect, according to a Blaze News investigation, confirmed by several intelligence sources. A source close to a congressional investigation of January 6th additionally told Blaze News evidence has emerged recently that pointed toward law enforcement possibly being involved in the planting of the pipe bombs. Yes, it's pretty interesting. This person, Shawnee Kirkhoff, was a Capitol police officer until 2021, when she went to work for the CIA. Not at all surprising. What is that? That's probably a step up, eh? Go from being Capitol Police in Washington, D.C. to working security at the CIA. Not that the CIA is particularly divulgent about what their employees are doing. But it wouldn't surprise me to learn something which none of us will probably ever learn, that someone at the agency was talking to Capitol Police and saying, hey, we got a job for you. Would you potentially be interested in a career at the CIA? Well, here's this bag. We need you to put one over here at the DNC, and so 2 bags, I guess, because there was a pipe bomb discovered on January 6th at the DNC headquarters in Washington, D.C., and the Republican headquarters. The reporting was very vague. Now I guess we're learning that law enforcement was covering up a lot of the details, and this is why we couldn't figure anything out, because when you let an administration seize control over the government after an election that held a lot of inconsistencies in the way it was conducted and how the results were obtained, you unfortunately lose the opportunity to do any real investigation into the events that took place over the course of the election and the counting of the ballots. And that's what we lived through from 2021 to 2024. But Shawnee Kirkhoff apparently got a sweet gig working for the CIA, allegedly, potentially, because she did the CIA a favor and dropped some pipe bombs off at the DNC and the RNC, presumably, in my opinion, as a failsafe, just in case the riot, the protest, didn't yield the results that the cabal or the Democrats or the globalist elite desired. Since the FBI had 275 or 274 agitators, I'll call them, allegedly, working the crowd at the January 6th protest, they didn't have to fall back to the pipe bombs planted at the DNC and the RNC. Because I think, I don't know, has it been established? Can we agree that the motivation for these staged protests, which I believe were staged protests, I mean, obviously not all of the protesters understood that they were going to a staged protest. The staging generally takes place when you talk about 275 FBI employees agitating the crowd, which enabled Congress to say, "Oh, we're in danger. We're being threatened. We can't have debate. We can't see these affidavits that came from all of these people across polling across the country, from poll watchers to Good Samaritans, that thought, hey, I'm seeing something. I mean, we all saw it. We all saw him covering up the windows. No debate was allowed in Congress during the election certification because of the safety concerns, I say with air quotes, that arose from the January 6th protests and the people breaking into the Capitol. This allowed them to say no debate. There was a specific term that was floated around, all these years ago now. It said, oh, no, we can't discuss it. We can't look at these things. We can't see evidence of impropriety. We got to certify this election and get out of here because we're in danger. Thank goodness there was a protest that enabled them to do that. Had there not been a protest, my opinion is that they set off those pipe bombs. Now there's been explosions reported in Washington, D.C. while they're trying to certify the election. We got to get out of here. Just ram it through. What's the worst that could happen? Of course, Democrats controlled Congress at that time. So it was an easy decision. Quick, certify the Democrat that won the election, allegedly. And we'll all get out of here safely. Because, it's a safety issue. Having a protest outside when you steal an election from the people, allegedly, reportedly. Some people may believe. This is going to get so squashed on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. We go live about 11 o'clock every Sunday. I was deep down the rabbit hole looking up election data. I have more to report on that because there was a big election this week that went, I think it went about how we all expected, given that nothing was done to secure elections in any real meaningful way. As we get into it, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave me a review and a comment if you would like. We are streaming live on X, on YouTube, on Rumble, and on Twitch. Go to Rumble if you need help deciding. And we also have an audio version available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and the other variety of podcast platforms that you can download on your phone and take to work with you. Did you see that Jimmy Kimmel was canceled again? Sort of surprisingly. I mean, there was a lot of like sensational reporting. Oh my God, Jimmy Kimmel. He's been, what is this? Dude, look at these ads. These ads are absolutely out of control, and you don't even get to close it. You got click 15 times, and I hope you're watching, because now I'm at a completely different page than the one that I pulled up. Paying the price of trying to close the literally, I mean, how much actual, and then you click that's why it's there. It's there to get you to click so that they can show engagement. Oh, look, people are clicking around. What an absolute tragedy. Media has become such a joke. I have more to discuss on that front as well. Apparently, well, conservative media was reporting that, CBS canceled the Jimmy Kimmel show again. What actually happened is they had to cancel the one show that Kimmel was appointed to host on, I believe, Thursday of last week. From the article, according to Deadline, the first to report this news, a message was sent to fans attending the taping at the El Capitan Theater that the episode was postponed and that they would receive tickets to a future taping. Quote, due to unforeseen circumstances, Jimmy Kimmel Live needed to reschedule my performance that was originally set to air tonight to a later date. This person, Beer, posted on social media. Okay, what's the big deal? Well, when you do a daily show, there's a lot of money and power and messaging invested in you doing that show. It's sort of one of the obstacles that you have to overcome as you're entering the media space. People need to know that you're going to show up and that you're going to show up every day. So to have Jimmy Kimmel Live, basically, to have Jimmy Kimmel call in sick for an episode is completely unprecedented. Of course, things happen. People get sick. People go on vacation. It doesn't happen in TV like it does when you work at Chick-fil-A. You got to go. People are counting on you. So they're calling it a personal emergency for personal reasons. Jimmy Kimmel couldn't do his show. It's very strange. There's a lot of big companies that rely on you to do your show. A lot of advertisers. Not to mention the value that comes from injecting all of the carefully crafted propaganda, which is all approved by these big companies. It's like maybe you've noticed, if you listen to podcasts a lot, as I do, when any podcast in particular, let's say Theo Von, when a massive star goes on a podcast, the business folks behind the podcast, they pull a little more ad revenue in. They call up the usual advertisers and say, hey, Bernie Sanders is coming into the podcast. You want to throw a little more money down to get a few more ads out? Because we're expecting 30% increase on viewers and listeners. So they increase the number of ads, they can increase the number of advertisers, and they increase the number of ad dollars flowing into the company and the organization. When the host doesn't show up, I mean, you can see it in the numbers. Timcast IRL jumps to mind. When Tim doesn't show up because he's got whatever, a new family, his wife had a baby, he's got other stuff going on, he's under security threats because he talks about things that are very unsavory to the globalist cabal. Well, that show does poorly. Lower numbers than usual because people want to hear the host. The fact that this cancellation came through so late in the hour that they couldn't even bring somebody in to do the show in place of him, because remember, I mean, that was a thing, wasn't it? Jimmy Kimmel had guest hosts for weeks. And I forget the circumstances. Oh, it was after he tested positive for COVID-19. Thank you, Google. He brought in a slew of guest hosts from the Google AI, which I'm sure is very trustworthy. Jimmy Kimmel has had various guest hosts for his show, including a series of celebrities who hosted during his annual summer breaks. So that's just vacation. Of course, that has the potential to do better numbers because they're getting big stars, piquing people's curiosity to see, what is this? Is this cool? Is this how is Jelly Roll gonna do hosting the Jimmy Kimmel show? Why did this cancellation happen on such short notice that they couldn't get anyone to come and fill in? All of those ad dollars are lost. Ticket refunds, free tickets to another taping. We don't get to know. Just a personal issue. Okay? Nobody look over here. It had to upset a lot of very wealthy companies that wield a lot of influence, because that's the world we live in. The more money you have, the more powerful you are. You can buy elections, you can buy school boards, you can buy other companies. And I just had this thought not long after we wrapped the show last week. Imagine that you own a big company that sold, massive commodity, big time commodities, like an oil company. And say you were very influential in all the ways that we have already talked about or talked about in shows past. You're paying lobbyists, you're laundering campaign donations, etc. You're basically in control of choosing governors, congressmen, presidents. So using this massive influence, you facilitate, let's say, a government that causes the cost of operating your business to skyrocket. Why would you do something like that? This, unfortunately or fortunately, forces you to shield yourself from these increased costs by ceasing to produce oil and gas, because Biden canceled your oil and gas leases. So you have to stop producing oil and gas, creating artificial demand and causing the prices to skyrocket. And you make a fortune because your profits have skyrocketed right along with the price of your commodity. And even more so because you haven't been investing in your business. So all of this money that you would carve out from your profits to invest in new operations, that all goes into your pocket now, because of all the regulations that this new government has created for you. And as usual, you just pass the costs, any cost that you would incur, any new taxes, you pass this on to the consumer. But you can shield yourself from all of the backlash by blaming the increased cost of operation on this new administration that is hostile to oil and gas. I mean, remember during the Biden debates and during his whole campaign, or lack of a campaign, he talked about ending fossil fuels. So, of course, the public becomes outraged and they throw their support behind another candidate. A candidate that pledges they're going to remove regulations and drive down your costs and do whatever they can to encourage you as your, business owner, chairman of the board, to bring your prices down. So Donald Trump comes in, he removes regulations. Drill, baby, drill, he says. But you as the business owner, you won't reduce your prices right away. In fact, you have to keep your prices high so that you can invest in your business that was so heavily throttled under the last administration. So even though inflation is down, even though the cost of oil is down, you as a massive business owner can leave your prices high because all you have to do is point your finger at the politicians and say, don't blame me. I'm just trying to run a business. You see how that works? When government comes in and raises the minimum wage to something outrageous, do you take a pay cut as the CEO? Oh, no, hell no. You pass all of that on to the consumer. Or you take it away from the employees. And when they have a problem with it, you blame the government. Because government is the scapegoat for all the shitty things that the corporations want to do to us. The government makes it legal and protects the corporations from the people they're actively screwing over. This is why they cheat in elections. So they can install selfish bootlickers to do their bidding. And they've done it so successfully for so long that now they can cheat right out in the open. And no one will hold them accountable because the bootlickers are in place. And of course they are. What are they going to, what are these politicians going to do? Stand up for us? Stand up for you? You're not paying their bills. You're not financing their campaigns. You're not funneling millions and millions of tax dollars into their business through subsidies and food stamp programs. And the more I learn about this kind of thing, the more I learn about the games that the corporations and the government are playing with us, the more I feel like COVID was a biological attack on the world by enemies of the West and its freedom. If you look at it in terms of Cloward Piven, which is what we've been talking about a lot over the last couple of weeks, basically the Marxist strategy to overwhelm the systems in Western countries by facilitating illegal immigration to further overwhelm the system. I mean, what do you think happened to all of the people that couldn't work for 2 weeks? 15 days to slow the spread, or however long it ended up being in your neighborhood. What did you have to do? You had to go on welfare. You had to collect food stamps. You had to get bailed out. I mean, I'm just looking at this data thinking, was COVID-19 an attack on our welfare system? Not just the United States welfare system, but the welfare system of all of the first world Western countries that are all now being decimated by refugees and illegal immigration. I mean, did it start with those of us that just lost our jobs and were forced to go on government benefits. Then followed up by insane immigration policy for the 5 years after, until Donald Trump came back and said, that's enough of this. Look at these numbers from Wall Street Apes. He writes on X, this is insane. Food stamp spending was just $4.5 billion in December of 2019. By December 2022, thanks to a massive expansion by the Biden admin, food stamp spending was $11 billion per month, feeding mainly illegals Democrats dumped into America. Because what? Joe Biden said, yeah, surge the border. That's a lot of new artificially subsidized demand. And guess what? In that same period, grocery prices went up. Because our fearless, illustrious, respected leaders said, hey, we're just going to print a bunch of money to insanely devalue your currency and make... Oh, come on, cooperate! God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for yelling. Stuff just drives me crazy. There's a clip of Matt Walsh attached here. Let's take a listen.
From the Department of Agriculture, you can see their monthly food stamp spending was just $4.5 billion in December of 2019. By December 2022, thanks to a massive expansion by the Biden administration, food stamp spending was $11 billion per month. That's a lot of new artificially subsidized demand. And guess what? In that same period, grocery prices went up. By some estimates, food prices go up by 1% for every 12% increase in food stamp spending. In this case, we're looking at a percentage increase of nearly 150%. So you could do the math on that. It's more than a 10% increase in your grocery bill every single month. And what this means is that if you're a working American and you're not on food stamps, meaning you are a functional citizen who is taking care of yourself and your own family, you are a functional, contributing citizen. What that means is you are actually paying, against your will, for other people's groceries twice.
They needed the pandemic, in my opinion, to put these systems in place. You overwhelm the system with Americans that have suddenly all lost their jobs. They all have to collect unemployment. They all need food stamps because the government shut their businesses down in the name of a pandemic. And yes, I understand it was Donald Trump listening to the advice of Anthony Fauci, which I challenge any honest person to tell me that whichever president happened to be in that seat would have also listened to what Anthony Fauci told them to do. So Americans are forced onto these systems. These systems say, government help. We need more money into these systems. And the government says, yes, we have to do it. We made those poor people lose their jobs, close their businesses to keep us safe. And millions of people still died. It was all, what was the purpose? What was the purpose of it? Really? Not saving lives, slow the spread. What was the purpose of it really? If not to begin overwhelming the system. Many people collect benefits. Many American citizens, fraudulently or not, many Americans, legal citizens, are taking advantage of SNAP and welfare programs. This opened the door for the influx of immigrants to also start collecting welfare benefits, in which over half of immigrants are collecting. Overwhelming the system is the goal. It doesn't matter if they're immigrants or Americans. But I am beginning to wonder how much of this is really the fault of the immigrants anyway. Are you telling me you wouldn't collect all the benefits you could if you were invited to a country, a much better country than your own, and expeditiously transported there? and told how we're going to give you this money, we're going to give you a phone, we're going to give you a place to live. This was the function of the NGOs through the years of unfettered immigration we experienced under Joe Biden. And it just keeps ramping up. Debit cards, food stamps, welfare, driver's license, work permit, voter registration. But I don't know. As I've been going through all of this stuff, all the election data that I could find, I thought, maybe they're cheating and blaming the immigrants. I mean, that's the narrative from the uniparty Republicans. The immigrants are voting, and these blue cities are signing up illegals for benefits and stealing your money and your elections. So I guess we should beg for more surveillance, huh? We need digital ID so we know where everyone is always, and if they're legal, and if they're employed, and they have any health problems, and what prescriptions they're taking. I guess we're supposed to beg for that because our welfare system is overwhelmed and our elections are being stolen. I guess we need to give all of our freedom away and let you mass surveil instead of the obvious solution, which is voter ID, voting on paper in one day with the results that night, like the gun debate. How do we stop all these mass shootings? Well, isn't the obvious solution armed security? Hardened facilities, I think they call it. But that's not beneficial to the cabal. No, they want to take your guns away. They don't want to keep you safe. They want to put you in danger. But whether illegals are voting or not, they're definitely overwhelming the welfare system. They're contributing, at the very least. Look at these numbers. From Mike Netter on X, he writes, look at how the numbers grow for SNAP in California. From just under $6 billion in 2019 to just over $11 billion in 2021. Doubled, nearly doubled in just 2 years. California received at least $12.6 billion in federal SNAP benefits in fiscal year 2024, which is 99% of the state's total food assistance funding, up from $10.7 billion in 2023. And probably even more now in 2025. Apparently, even post-COVID, more Californians than ever can't afford food in Newsom's California. But if we try to take it away, if we try to keep people honest, well, then it's a media tragedy. Interesting how that works. Almost as if the media is complicit in this Cloward-Piven strategy to overwhelm the West. But Zero Hedge reported a little bit of good news. Let's see how their website cooperates. I preview most of this stuff on my phone, and as you know, it comes through a bit different on the big rigs. By Tyler Durden on Zero Hedge. You can always trust an anonymous journalist, right? Headline, 700,000 ineligible SNAP recipients purged after USDA uncovers widespread food stamp fraud. It's so easy to discover when you look, but no one looks. Everyone's afraid of having their life ruined by the elitist cabal. From the article, U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins joined Fox News on Sunday and addressed the American people about the USDA's massive effort to combat fraud in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. Rollins said that the Trump administration sent letters to all governors prohibiting illegal aliens from accessing benefits, with a historic request for state data to be audited alongside the Department of Government Efficiency. She said only 29 states cooperated, primarily red, and some blue states. Why wouldn't the blue states cooperate? Oh, because they're using welfare and SNAP to buy votes. I'm sure you could go through campaign speech after campaign speech by leftists trying to win elections in blue cities, claiming that your benefits will disappear if you vote for the Republican. We got to give you free food and free health care and free everything because we got to overwhelm this system. We got to create chaos. Are we shocked? But more than that, we need to create voters for these radical Marxist candidates. I mean, I don't even really think they're Marxist. I think this is what the Republicans tell you. I think they're fascists. And I think they will cleverly disguise their fascism until the time is right. But it didn't all go Democrats' way on the 5th. Because we talked a bit about Omar Fatah, the Minneapolis mayoral candidate who wants to make Minneapolis look like Somalia, we can assume. Leading report writes on X, breaking, Jacob Frey beats Omar Fatah and wins Minneapolis mayor election. Hallelujah. Although people are saying he'll be just as bad. It will be all the same policies, and I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that it will be all the same policies. It's just surprising. Surprising that the Muslims didn't win out in this election. Maybe it was a red herring. They make Omar Fatah look like a horrible person in the media so that all of the voters turn out to vote against him. Yet still end up electing the same policies. Because, I mean, Minnesota is, I don't want to say hopelessly corrupt, but it's pretty damn near hopelessly corrupt. Unrelated to the election, this story also came out this week. At Jack Unheard writes on X, massive fraud exposed. A Somali restaurant in Minneapolis claimed to be feeding 6,000 children every single day. Investigators say they fed just 40 kids in 6 weeks while pocketing $12 million in federal cash. This is why they don't let you vote. They don't want anyone coming in that's going to try to provide a little oversight on these kind of programs. They're just stealing your money. That huge number on your pay stub that says federal taxes, state taxes, income taxes. First of all, it's theft. Right out the gate. They're taking money that you earned. But they tell you, it's for smooth roads, it's for police, it's for firefighters. Is it really? Or do they just fudge the numbers, cheat some spreadsheets, and put it right in their own bank accounts? Why wouldn't they? What what are the consequences for doing that? Do you think anybody's going to be arrested? Or do you think they're going to do what they always do? Oh, whoops, it was just a mistake. Sorry. You can't try me for treason if I'm just bad at my job. I mean, that's been Hillary Clinton's go-to for years and years. Oh, it was just an accident. Sorry, I don't know what happened to those 33,000 emails that incriminated me for treason, for trying to sell out my country and enriching myself along the way. Or they just say, oh, it's unprecedented. Like in this post from @thechiefnerd. New Jersey saw 500,000 more votes than any other year in history. And nearly all of them went to Democrats. He shares a post from Scott Morrison, who writes, for the last 50 years, we would have 2 million plus voters, and the winner would get roughly 1.1 to 1.4 million votes. Somehow, we now have over 3 million voters, and the Democrat has 1.7 million votes. I mean, I'm sure it's just a coincidence. I'm sure maybe somebody just typed in the wrong number. Right Angle News Network breaks it down also. Phil Murphy, the Democratic candidate for governor in 2017, got 1.2 million votes. Before that, Chris Christie in 2013 got almost 1.3 million votes. In 2021, Phil Murphy, again, 1,339,407 votes. 471 votes. But in November 4th, in 2025, on November 4th, Mickey Sherrill got 1.8 million votes. And the Democrats just say, oh, it was just record turnout. Nothing to see here. Definitely don't talk about it, or we'll ruin your life. Mike Crispy, also incredulous on X. He writes, you're telling me that 450,000 new inner city voters in New Jersey showed up for Milk Toast Mickey Sherrill because they were so inspired by her message and were upset about the government shutdown and losing food stamps. This is the narrative that they're spinning in the media. They're going to vote for state and local politicians that have nothing to do with food stamps because they're upset about food stamps. I don't know if this is a legitimate Sidney Powell account. It's verified. It could be. Remember Sidney Powell? She kind of got dragged for her release the Kraken message that she touted after the 2020 election. She also responded to Mike Crispy, who shared a chart writing, New Jersey turnout in 2025 is eerily reminiscent of Joe Biden 2020. Biggest jump in votes since the 80s, yet Sherrill was incredibly uninspiring. Trump's approval rating in New Jersey is higher than Governor Murphy, who I think got the next highest vote count before Mickey Sherrill. Are we shocked? I mean, nothing has been done to fix this. And it's an interesting narrative. Historic turnout to elect Democrats. I guess people are really passionate about destroying their livelihoods. And it's extra interesting that they had this historic turnout amidst all the swatting and bomb threats that they received at polling elections all through, or, throughout election day. Look at this headline on X. Bomb threats and voting machine failures disrupt New Jersey gubernatorial race. Emailed bomb threats led to temporary closures at polling sites in 7 New Jersey counties, including Bergen, Essex, Mercer, Middlesex, Monmouth, Ocean, and Passaic, while voting machine failures in Republican-leaning districts of Cumberland County halted operations during the election between Democrat Mickey Sherrill and Republican Jack Chattarelli. Authorities, led by New Jersey Attorney General Matthew Platkin, investigated the threats and confirmed no credible dangers, enabling most sites to reopen after sweeps and voter relocations. Do you think the voters turned right around in their cars and went back to vote? Or do you think they said, no, my life is more important than casting a vote in this governor's election? In Virginia, many other reports of shenanigans. Not surprisingly. This posted by Lindell TV. We're not going to play the video because it's 3 minutes long, but they write, what happened last night wasn't an election. It was a setup. Machines failed in red districts. Poll pads crashed. Bomb threats shut down precincts. Voters were blocked in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Ohio, all on cue. Jason Miyares of Virginia had a lead. Then came the now familiar fraud curve. And the GOP, too busy funding influencers and pushing early voting to notice. This isn't incompetence. It's the system working exactly as designed. One day, in person, paper ballots, hand counted. Anything else is a scam. Hear, hear. Because remember, in Virginia, we had Jay Jones, the guy who wants to kill his opponents and their children. He won his election. Do you think Republicans are going to get justice in Virginia? At Real Rob N, Real Robert writes on X, this is Abigail mail-in ballot Spamberger. Let's listen.
When someone chooses to vote absentee for the first time that they're also voting, there are additional hurdles. And they need to provide a photocopy of their driver's license. For some, they need to have a signature that's matched nearly identical to their voter registration. And some of these hurdles might really disadvantage newer voters and particularly younger voters. When someone chooses to vote absentee.
Yeah, whatever we got to do to get the votes in. Are you legal? Don't care. Are you going to vote for me? Good. Here's your voter registration. In other words, or Robert continues to write, on election night, Virginia Democrat candidate Spamberger had around 125,000 early mail-in votes. By the following morning, that number had surged to more than 300,000. In other words, they pulled a Biden. Over 175,000 mail-in ballots appeared in the dead of night for Spamberger. That's why they oppose voter ID laws and fight tooth and nail to keep it that way. I got more. It doesn't get any better. I think that's the one I just hit. That's the other one I just hit. Now we got a little mail-in data from Bill Mitchell. I'll give you a share real quick. I'm going to smash this mouse into pieces. Sorry about it. Bill Mitchell writes, want to know why we lost the AG race in Virginia despite Miyares polling as much as 8 points ahead just days before the election? The guy had an 8-point lead because the people answering polls said, now we don't want an attorney general that wishes death upon his political opponents. Bill continues, mail-in voting, I call it fraud voting. Democrats led this by 47 points. 47% of mail-in ballots received in Virginia were Democrats. And I'm really honestly surprised that that information was available. I didn't find that info when I was digging into New York, which sort of, I guess, contributed to my tardiness. But Zoran Mamdani is the new mayor of New York. And NBC reported that it was the largest voter turnout in more than 50 years. According to the city's Board of Elections, more than 2 million voters had cast ballots before the polls close, marking the biggest turnout in a New York mayoral race in at least 50 years. And they're referring to, what was the guy's name? Was Jack Lindsay, I think? I didn't write it down. I should have. 1969. Not even half the registered voters in New York City voted in this election. But it's a historic turnout. There's 5 million voters in New York City today. Barely 2 million turned out to vote. You want to guess how many how many registered voters they had in New York in 1969? 3 million. 3 million registered voters in New York City in 1969. Do you know how many registered voters they have in New York City today? 5 million. So 2/3 of registered voters turned out in 1969. But not even half the registered voters turned out in 2025 for this election. But the media feels fine saying, oh, it was a most historic turnout in 50 years. No, that's a shit turnout. It doesn't matter. There were only 3 million registered voters in New York City in 1969. The fact that 2/3 of the registered voters turned out and voted in 1969 is impressive. That's historic. Less than half of the registered voters in New York City turned out to vote in this week's election. What does that tell you? And the numbers are really weird and suspicious, but unfortunately, the information that is available on this election looks nothing like the information that was available during the 2020 election. I wonder why. I mean, there was no information on who was voting by mail in terms of party affiliation in New York. Because they don't want people asking questions. They don't want citizen journalists blowing the whistle on the election impropriety that is still going on. Because rich Republicans want to install their political candidate of choice in the same way that rich Democrats want to install political candidates of their choice. I mean, can we even call them Democrats? They're globalists. They're globalist authoritarians. So now it's run while you can, according to some conservative influencers. I'm tired of it. Laura Loomer writes, gee, what could possibly go wrong? A Muslim mayor who is campaigning with a 1993 World Trade Center bombing co-conspirator is going to dismantle the NYPD's terrorism task force. Get out of NYC while you can before jihad strikes. I'm getting tired of this message. Running from bad government is how you get more bad governments. There's tremendous support behind the bad guys. Where's the support for the good guys? According to the information that I could dig up, only 500, almost 600,000 registered Democrats or registered Republicans to almost 3 million, 3.5 million registered Democrats. And then even weirder, 1.1 million unaffiliated. Of those, only 2 million showed up to vote. And they voted over 50% in favor of Zoran Mamdani. Because the good guys left. They all moved to Florida. But the left still won't leave it to chance. That's why the mainstream media is reporting record turnout. They're not just going to cross their fingers and hope that all the Republicans move to Florida. They're going to put their thumb on the scale because they have no motivation to stop cheating. Because they felt no consequences for cheating. They continue to do it blatantly. Charlie's Voice Rising, a fan account, writes on X, they polled a Katie Hobbs, this time in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Ohio. Voting machines crash in GOP districts, bomb threats, shut down precincts. All three states, same moment. And we're supposed to believe this was a free and fair election. When corrupt politicians control elections, more corrupt politicians will control our lives. So why isn't there an appetite for cleaning this up? I mean, it's probably because election fixing is a lucrative business. I mean, that'd be my guess. That's why somebody just bought a alleged Republican just bought Dominion voting systems, presumably so he can fix elections for Republicans. And I'm sure there's no shortage. I bet there's plenty of so-called Republicans who would love to steal elections for their friends. But unfortunately, they're not the ones in control. It must be, somebody in Iran or Saudi Arabia. I mean, if it was conservatives, if it was really any self-respecting American, any American that couldn't jump ship to China to continue their luxurious lifestyle, I doubt we'd be witnessing the downfall of the Western world. I mean, if you just look out, don't look outside, because outside, there's nothing to worry about outside. At least not if you live where I live. Does it look like Americans that want America to continue being a nice place to live are the ones wielding the levers of power in this country? Doesn't seem so to me. At least Tom Fitton is doing something. Tom Fitton is the CEO of Judicial Watch, who was actually, I wonder what happened between he and the Trump administration. Trump gave him some minor responsibility to keep tabs on judges around the country. Then he lost the election. And who knows what happened after that. But he writes on X, huge Supreme Court set to decide today whether they will take up our successful case that found the counting of ballots received after Election Day is unlawful. Judicial Watch again with the heavy lifting for the clean elections. Let's watch the video.
Hey everyone, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton here with some big news. We have a civil rights lawsuit for Mississippi voters who object to that state's counting ballots for up to 5 days that arrive, absentee ballots, after an election. Federal law allows for an election day, not an election week. We also have a lawsuit in Illinois where they count ballots that arrive for up to 14 days after an election, even without a valid postmark. I tell you, counting ballots after election day is a great way to invite fraud. It undermines confidence in the elections. Plus, it's downright illegal.
You know, they're counting ballots in New York until November 14th. Isn't that crazy? Data this morning is that they've got 97% counted, but they need 5 more days for the other 3%. New York City bureaucracy is going to make sure they get their Muslim mayor. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised if his orders come directly from the caliphate. What better way to sow chaos in the West by invading them with a culture that is antithetical to their own? I saw this video of a guy attempting to debate Islam in America. Let's take a listen. It's 4 minutes long. We're not going to listen to the whole thing.
You say Islam is incompatible with America. Would you say incompatible or is it illegal?
Incompatible.
Okay.
It's not illegal to be a Muslim here, but
So this is set up like a change my mind sort of scenario. This guy's sitting behind his table with his Make America Great hat on, taking questions from the public.
Islam is incompatible with the United States.
So it's a personal opinion?
Yeah, it's a personal opinion, yeah, but it's stemmed by the fact that Islamic law is in direct conflict with U.S. law.
In Islamic law, we believe the law of the land, meaning whatever land you live in, you have to follow the laws. I'm Muslim. I want 4 wives, but it's not possible in the United States, you know, because you can only have one legally. So
if the laws where you can't be a Muslim, you follow that?
I'm sorry?
If the law was that you can't be a Muslim, you follow that?
Yeah, well, we wouldn't follow that, but that's not the law in the United States, and we're talking about the United States directly.
But if it was the law, hypothetically, you're saying that the doctrine of Islam is to follow whatever the laws of the land are. If the laws of the land are that you cannot be a Muslim, you convert?
No, you would leave the land. You have to live in a place that allows you to be a Muslim. Because as a Muslim, that's
the United States doesn't
thing.
allow you to practice Islam in its full capacity.
It does. That's why Muslims live here and practice Islam.
No, it doesn't.
There's mosques all around here. You might want to go to one.
The 4 wives comments really struck me. He talks about wanting 4 wives, but he can't have 4 wives in America because it isn't legal. But I want to talk about how Muslims are able to take 4 wives for themselves in Muslim countries where it isn't against the wall. That's good. Because it isn't against the law in Muslim countries to take 4 wives. Because women are possessions in Muslim culture. You can't take American law dictates that you only have 1 wife because that is part of our culture. Women aren't possessions in American culture. You subjugate a woman and make her your wife in Islam. This is why Islam is not compatible with the West, because we don't treat our women like possessions. I learned a little more about Islam this week when I stumbled across this video. I already knew that this was kind of a thing, but it's articulated so well in this video by a Muslim person that I thought it was really interesting. Wanted to share it with you.
There's something in Islam called taqiyya. Can you talk about what that is?
Yeah, so taqiyya is so again, I came from a Sunni background and I hadn't even heard of it as a concept, but apparently in Shia Islam it's more of a bigger deal. But again, it exists in both. It's in the Sharia manuals. Essentially, to just in a nutshell, it's giving you permissibility to lie in order to further propagate the cause of Islam. So essentially, in order to make Islam look good or to, keep its PR in check, if you will, you're allowed to bend the truth, and you're allowed to hide and mask your identity and your real intentions and your real objectives in order to further Islam in any way.
In any way, so there's no moralistic boundaries to that?
Not that I'm aware of. If the end goal is that it will further Islam in any way that's positive, that's anything is okay.
Okay, and if anyone would like to follow...
We're all kind of just carrying on, knowing this information. I mean, please believe the people holding highest office around the world, they know this about Islam. We waged a massive campaign against Islam in Europe during the Crusades. We know these things, but we're just kind of keeping our fingers crossed, holding our breath, and hoping that this isn't the belief of most of the Muslims that we've ushered into our countries across the Western world. What do we do with Islam? Do we hold our breath and hope that they don't kill us all and let them move in next door to us? I don't know what the answer is. I don't believe that all Muslims are lying to us about what they want in their lives as it pertains to their religion and their livelihood. But who are most of the people that are strapping on bomb vests and blowing up restaurants and train stations? Are they Catholic? Or are they Muslim? On to some good news. Citizen Free Press writes on X, big numbers. According to DHS, we have now seen 1.6 million self-deportations and another 500,000 deported by ICE. Let's watch the video.
Well, the president is all about results, as is Secretary Noem. And really, what President Trump, Secretary Noem, and our law enforcement have been able to do in the past 270 days, despite the injunctions, despite the obstruction from sanctuary city politicians and these activist judges, is really nothing short of extraordinary. 2 million illegal aliens exiting the country. That includes 1.6 million deportations and over 500,000 deportations from our ICE and CBP officers. But we're going to be really surging resources. We have 10,000 new ICE enforcement officers that are going to be hired in the coming days. So we know that we're going to continue to arrest the worst of the worst off of the streets of America's sanctuary cities and across the nation. Well, the president is all about results.
Hey, I said be quiet. What percentage of the illegal immigrants that have surged the border and entered our country? I mean, they say 20 million of them. What percentage do you think should be deported? All of them? The violent ones? The economic ones that are here to make good money? Send it back. Because the number of illegal immigrants, we'll use the blanket term, that have come into the country in the last 5 years is about 20 million. Is 10% worthy of celebration? And what more do you think needs to be done? We got 1.6 million self-deported, 500,000 deported by ICE, and we think, I mean, the worst of the worst, they say. Despite what the media tells you. Did you hear that ICE was targeting daycare centers this week? Yeah, that was the message. That was the message from mainstream media. ICE went to a daycare center to arrest a daycare worker in front of the kids. It was a tragedy. And you know what's funny? What's even worse? Maybe I can, let me see. Diana Galliano. Check this out. I'm going to go back to this other post, but I just want you to look. I typed this woman's name, Diana Galliano. Maybe it's 2 L's. Maybe if I throw another L in there, we'll get a different result. No, it's interesting. I type her name in on Google, and we have pictures of Princess Diana. Even though on social media, this was a sensational story. And nothing about Diana Galliano, this illegal immigrant that worked at a daycare. I guess I better pull the other L out for the sake of this explanation. And look where all of the articles come from. If I click news. Oh, what is this? Different results? No, it's all about Princess Diana again. People, Vanity, WWD, Marie Claire. Nothing about Diana Galliano. If we go back to the All tab, where's all the news coming from? Facebook, Instagram, Facebook, Instagram. Then LinkedIn results, Instagram results, TikTok results, Facebook, not a single reputable news organization. Maybe that's because of what Trisha McLaughlin writes on X at Trisha Ohio. ICE law enforcement did not target a daycare. Officers attempted to conduct a targeted traffic stop of this female illegal alien from Colombia. This is all factual from what I've learned so far. Officers attempted to pull over this vehicle, which was registered to a female illegal alien with sirens and emergency lights, but the male driver refused to pull the vehicle over. Law enforcement pursued the vehicle before the assailant sped into a shopping plaza where he and the female passenger fled the vehicle. They ran into a daycare and attempted to barricade themselves inside the daycare, recklessly endangering the children inside. The illegal alien female was arrested inside a vestibule, not in the school. Upon arrest, she lied about her identity. The vehicle is registered in her name, though she claims that she didn't know the man who was driving the car and just picked him up from a bus stop. Facts including criminality and information on the male assailants are forthcoming, and we will update the public with more information as soon as it becomes available. Nobody will care about this story after that. It's only sensational when you hear that the terrible ICE agents are arresting poor little daycare teachers. You call a daycare worker a teacher? It's all a fraud. And they will tell you whatever they think they need to tell you to get you to support their agenda. They think that you're so stupid, you'll believe whatever they tell you. But the mainstream media doesn't pick it up. No, it's just a story on social media. Because at least the current administration is getting serious about the lies that the media is telling the American public. And if you're wondering about the character of the people ICE is targeting, well, they're the kind of people that would run into a daycare to shield themselves from the accountability of being illegal immigrants in this country. And I want all those people gone. Maybe you don't agree, but that's okay. We don't have to agree on everything. And thank you very much for making it this far into the show. I am nourished by your support. But don't let it stop there. Hit the share button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the follow button. I'm at earthvox everywhere. You can find the earthvox podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and every other place you may download a podcast. The video streams live Sunday at 11 a.m. I was a little late this morning. We talked about that. You can send me an email, therealearthvox@protonmail.com. And I hope you will take the plunge, be brave, and leave me a voicemail at 701-787-1121. I'll be back.